Hey guys, this is Manu doing a quick review, or actually lengthy review on Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Now, before I say anything, I haven't scripted anything, nothing. This is literally just a honest review of what I thought about the movie. It's been a couple days since I've seen it, but it's still fresh in my memory, and everything. So I just decided, you know what, let's do it. This will be my first movie review, and I kind of wanted it always to be something I loved, and I love Star Wars to death. I even love the originals, which I know people hate, but I just kind of had to. There was something about this movie that makes me want to talk about it, and hope for the future of what Star Wars can do, and first off, I'll go into the plot and subplot and all the little things later, but first I would just want to do a quick rundown of, really I just want to do a quick rundown of the characters and how they performed, and I'll go one by one with each of them. I'll do the main characters first, and then I'll go into the rest of them, but I really wanted to do just a review on how they did, how the entire cast was, or more or less like how well how they performed, if they were realistic or not. And first I really want to go into Finn. John Boyega did I think a fantastic job, and to be honest, I think all three new characters, Poe Dameron, Oscar Isaac, and Rey being Daisy Ridley, I think they did a fantastic job integrating them into basically becoming the next generation of Star Wars. It was kind of amusing. It was really amusing to see them all in it, and even though like John Boyega, he's not known for a lot of things besides, I think, recently Attack on the Block. But other than that, a lot of people, he does a lot of independent films, and I think as Finn, I think he really hits his stride, even though there's parts of the movie where he kind of overreacts, and he kind of overacts a little bit. But I feel like it's not his fault. I feel like it's just him being him. And during, it was mainly in the beginning of the movie where it felt like he was a little, just a tiny bit overreacting comparatively to like near the end, because at the end he kind of hit his strides, and he really grew into a character, and he felt organic near the end, and like I said, even in the beginning when it felt like he was overreacting and overacting, it felt like he was just being him, and he was just having fun, and that kind of gets you into the character, and you really enjoy Finn a lot more because of it. Kind of the same with Poe, because you see Poe in the very beginning. He's actually the very first character you see who comes out of the new generation, basically, and he's interesting. Oscar Isaac does a fantastic job with him, and it's kind of funny because I was like, oh man, we're gonna see Poe this entire movie, or at least like maybe not the beginning, but like maybe mid to end, and he basically shows up for the first maybe 10 to 20 minutes, and then he's gone. And then he shows up maybe the last 20 minutes as well. So he has a very, very short role in here, but because he has a short role, he has fun with it, and he has a lot of charisma playing Poe, and it's really hard to describe because it's something you have to visually see, but he has a couple scenes where he's trying to escape the First Order from Kylo Ren, and he's scrambling to get into his X-Wing fighter, and it's kind of amazing to see because there was, like, in the originals and in the prequels, there really wasn't like this sense of urgency really in any of the previous movies, and he sells it so well. And it makes you feel like because of his acting and his body motions and the way he breathes when he's like when he's panicking, and you can, and the look on his face, you can tell his thoughts, like, and what he's thinking, and like, because, and I know it's partially because not only is he a great actor, but also because, you know, he had very few lines as well as very few scenes in this movie. He kind of just sells it, and you want to know more about him, and you want to actually, like, love Poe that much, basically. And I think Oscar did a fantastic job. I'm really excited to see what they bring in the sequel, and we'll get more to that later on. But he just, it was a very good performance by him. Now, out of all of them, I honestly have to think Rey is probably the least believable, and I'm not saying that she didn't do a great job. I'm not saying that she didn't do fantastically and she wasn't a strong-willed character, and I like that about her because it reminds you a lot of Princess Leia, you know, being a very strong-willed character, very backsassy, kind of backsassy, I know-it-all character, but she's near opposite. It's kind of amazing to see that because she's kind of naive. Like, she's really naive in the movie, but I think part of it is that there's literally a scene where it's about 5-10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and it's literally just her saying nothing the entire scene. And it goes from her going inside this battleship inside on Jakku, this crashed down battleship, and then having her leave, go to a town, get food and rations from selling all this junk, and then going back to basically where she lives, which is like a crashed AT, and she says nothing the entire time. She says not a damn word, and you're just sitting there. You're like, I understand, like, you have nothing to say, but when you're getting your rations from the guy and he's being an asshole to you, because that's what he was in the beginning, and she says nothing, I'm like, are you gonna say something? And she doesn't say anything. She literally says nothing the entire that entire session, and it was just really weird to me. And throughout the entire movie, she feels confused, like, and I understand, like, that's what she is, like, her character, and like, I was talking to my friends before, I was like, if that's what she was supposed to be, confused, then I understand, you know, in the beginning, like, I understand, but it's during the end that she kind of hits her stride as well. Same with John. He hits his stride and she hits her stride, and I know it's because of character development, but her character development is by far I wouldn't say one of the weirdest, but it's one of the things that don't make sense, and I'll go into that later. But in all honesty, I don't think she did a bad job. I think she was great for most of the movie, especially during the action scenes. She did great. She was energetic. She looked scared. She played the part really well for Rey, and I know this is not really her only movie, but it's basically the biggest movie she's been in, so I could understand, you know, having that same the kind of feeling of nervousness, or maybe you're confused or whatever, or, you know, maybe just she was underacting or whatever. And I know, like, I feel like she was underacting comparatively to how she should have been. That's what I say. So, like, with John, he was a little bit reacting, hits his stride at the end, and it's the same with her. She's very underacting in the beginning, and then kind of shoots back up during the end. The next character I want to talk about is Harrison Ford and Chewie, and the reason why, like, normally people would sit there and go, why are you judging Chewie? Like, he doesn't do anything, or he's a classic or whatever. But first, I'll talk about that later, but let's talk about Harrison Ford. And I honestly feel like the reason, because I remember watching a review, or not a review, interview with Harrison Ford a couple weeks before the movie came out, and I think it was Katie Couric or someone was talking to him about what movie does he like the most out of all of the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and this movie. And he said this movie, and I don't know if he said this movie because he believes this movie is better than any of the prequel trilogies or the sequel or the original trilogy. But I think one of the reasons why he said that is because of the way he acted in this movie. And to be honest, this is probably one of the best, if not, and I've seen a lot of Harrison Ford movies, mind you. This is probably one of the best, if not one of the most organic. Not like his best moments, but easily one of his most organic and one of his best performances in a movie, in any movie he's ever done. He hits the spot. It's like the way you see it is, you look at Han Solo and you see this arrogant guy who's kind of a scaredy cat. Well, not a scaredy cat, my bad. I meant who's kind of like, I'm gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna be my own person and da 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 and all this stuff. But then, he falls in love with Leia, blah blah blah. But I mean, like, the thing about it is there's something about him. He basically, the way that I was talking to someone, or actually I was watching someone's another bunch of people's review, and they said that basically this is an old Solo. This is like if Solo grew up, if Solo got old. He's a lot wiser. He still has those snappy comebacks, those witty remarks, and kind of like asshole-ish comments, but it's Han Solo, and honestly, I think this is his even better than his original performance, which is really surprising. Well, not really surprising, because I do take into account that it's been basically 40 years since he's done the character of Han Solo, since his very first one, and you can tell in the first one that like, even though these actors are great, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can tell he's acting, like he's putting a little bit too emotion into it, or he's being a little bit too much sarcastic or snappy or witty or whatever, and you could tell that they're acting, and that's one of the things where he feels like he was acting, even though it was a great movie. Don't get me wrong. I love the originals just as much as I love the prequels. I actually love the originals more than the prequels, but I feel like this is easily his best Solo impersonation, or more likely his best Solo, one of his most organic and one of his best debuts as Solo in even the original trilogies. And I feel like that's probably why he said that. Now, that kind of goes the opposite for Carrie. She still acts like Princess Leia, don't get me wrong, but something's strange about it. It's more like Carrie Fisher is, and don't get me wrong, like I said before, all the actors, and I mean every single actor in this movie are fantastic. Every single actors in this movie are fantastic except one, and I think that's just by design. It's not the character or the actor himself, it's just by design. And Carrie just kind of strange. She feels tired. Like, Carrie Fisher, and I understand, like, if you watch the movie, you'll realize that the Republic has been established at this point, but the First Order takes place over the Empire, tries to fight the Republic after the Republic's gained strength, and then the Rebellion, or I forget what they're called. They're called the Resistance. That's what they're called. Carrie is basically fighting with the Resistance, commanding things. So, I mean, I understand that, like, if you're trying to make her seem tired, like Princess Leia seem tired, you did a good job. You know what I mean? Like, if that was the whole intent, you did a good job, because she still feels like Princess Leia is. She just doesn't. She's not as snappy or as kind of witty and kind of spoiled as she was. And I understand, like, they're older now, such as like Solo being wiser and Princess Leia being wiser. You would kind of expect that witty comebacks and things like that, and she does very little of them, which is kind of surprising. And it feels more like Carrie Fisher being organic, but it's more like Carrie Fisher being tired, comparatively to Princess Leia being tired almost. I think that's the only like on the good side, like, on the light side of the characters, like, performing so. But I think, like I said, I think it probably was a design for J.J. Abrams to do that to Leia, and so Carrie just kind of did her own thing, you know what I mean? And like, by no means, she still does fantastic. She still does great. There's still witty comebacks at Han when they finally meet up and everything like that. But it's just kind of weird, you know. It's just it feels almost a little out of place almost, but it's still a great performance nonetheless. Now I want to get into the dark side characters, and oh boy. First off, I want to get off, I don't know if his name is Darth Snoke or it's just Snoke, but Commander Snoke or whoever the fuck, I don't know what he is, but all we know him by is Snoke, who Andy Serkis play, was fucking intimidating. Like, when I saw it, because there's a scene where Kylo Ren goes and meets with Snoke, his master, and so does, Domhnall Gleeson, who plays General Hux. He goes over and talks to Snoke, and Snoke's this giant fucking huge alien, and you're like, holy shit, like, that is not real, right? Like, you have to sit there, you're just sitting there and you're like, fuck, like wait, the Jedis are gonna have to fight that, and then you like after that realization, you figure out that it's a projection, you know, but it's still like, what the fuck, like, he's massive, and honestly, Andy Serkis fucking kills it. Like, Snoke is very foreboding, he's very kind of calculated and smart. He realizes, like, and he's a little bit more lenient in this movie comparatively to a lot of like General Palpatine and a lot of other dark side Sith, because there's a part at the end where Kylo Ren's lying on the floor, and he's like, pick him up and let's go. We gotta, you know, what's called, in any other, you know, Palpatine would have been like, oh, fuck him, like Palpatine would have been like, oh, you killed him? Okay, you're my apprentice now, fucker. Like, he wouldn't care, you know, he just wants somebody who's successful, and who he can train to successfully beat him and take over the throne when he dies or whatnot. And in this one, like, Snoke feels menacing. Like, especially when you see that projected image for the first time, you're like, fuck, like, this guy is fucking menacing. Like, you could tell he's the bad guy right away. And it's kind of amazing. It's really cool looking, and Andy Serkis does a great job voice acting him. And I know it's easier to voice act than to actually act, but Andy Serkis just kills it. I mean, he does great. He does fantastically for Snoke, and I think that's, even though it's kind of like this it's a very small like point in the movie where he constantly talks about, or not when they constantly talk about Snoke, but when, like, in general, where they go to Snoke. And it's very quick and very fast. It's probably like maybe less than 5 minutes almost every time, and I think he only goes to him like 4 or 5 times. You can, every time you see him, you're just like, fuck that guy, like, this guy, like, he's a fucking monster. Oh shit, I completely forgot. I'm sorry, guys. I forgot to talk about Chewie. I completely forgot why Chewie felt weird to me, but I'll go into that later, and that also has to do with, like, plot scenes and things like that as well, so I'll save Chewie for later. But now I want to get to General Hux, which was played by Domhnall Gleeson, and I believe he was one of the Weasley kids. I think he's like the older brother of Weasley, but honestly, like, he's the perfect, he plays as an Imperial general in this, or not Imperial, sorry, my bad, as a First Order general, and he's great. Like, he hits his stride. Like, it's really hard to you have to see it. It's like on par with, like, Moff Tarkin in the original, Peter Cushing. He fucking hits that spot. Like, there's something about him that you just love to hate, and you're like, oh, this guy's fucking great. Like, he's this piece of shit that you know he's a fucking asshole, but you love to hate him. Like, there's something about him, and he does so well. He does incredibly well. I'm actually quite surprised at how well they how well he does. He's in a lot of the movie too, which is really surprising because I wasn't expecting to see. I was expecting to more or less see Kylo Ren than him, but he shows up in a lot of the movie, a lot of scenes, and when he does get a scene, he fucking like it's kind of funny because he overacts, but it's perfect. It's perfect to every point because he plays a character where he's supposed to, bring morale to the troops, and he has to be like that. And he's fantastic. There's a scene where he's sitting there and talking to Snoke, and Kylo Ren sitting there, and he's like, Master, we shouldn't have to fire up the weapon. I can do this. I know I can. And he's like, you failed me once already. And then like General Hux is just sitting there. Gleason's just sitting there, and he's like, I will do whatever the fuck I have to win this shit. And then like Snoke is like, you may proceed then. And like he goes up there and he gives this big fucking speech of just destroying the Republic and everything like that. And it's pretty fucking awesome. Like, and I think it's a good like 5, almost 10 minutes, and it's just this. It's really awesome. Like you're like at the edge of your seats. You're wondering what's gonna happen next, and it's a great performance. And I think he did fantastically. He's so good at the role that he played, and I can't wait to see him in the next one. To be honest, now I want to get to who else was in it? Kylo Ren. Yeah. That performance was underwhelming, to say the least. It was underwhelming. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sorry. Now Kylo Ren in the beginning does some fucking amazing shit. He does a lot of shit that even Darth Vader was doing in the original trilogy, where Darth Vader stops he does basically force absorb, where he absorbs the blaster bolt, and in this one, Kylo Ren basically demonstrates the same thing, but instead he does like a force hold on the blaster bolt, and it's fucking amazing because there's a part where a blaster gets shot at him, he stops the bolt in mid fucking air. He does this cool ass shit, and then he looks at Finn, and Finn's just standing there looking at him. And then while they're dragging Poe on board, he goes, all right, let's go. And he puts down his hand and starts walking away, and the bolt is still there, and they drag Poe by, and Poe just looks at it like, what the fuck? And then as soon as he passes by and starts going up the ship, while Kylo is also going up the ship, and not even putting his hand out to hold the blaster bolt, as soon as like Finn turns around and starts going back into the thing, he lets the blaster bolt go, and it hits the thing and scares the shit out of Finn. And it was just fucking amazing. Like Kylo Ren, like when he has the helmet on, he's a fucking badass. But when he takes that helmet off, man, does he fucking, oh jeez, like he's like a big whiny crybaby. He's like a big whiny crybaby nerd. That's what he is. He looks really weird because in the other movies, when you needed a mask because your face is fucked up. You know, just like Revan needed a mask because his face is fucked up, and same with Malik. He lost his lower jaw because his face was fucked up. But this one, he wears the mask just because he wants to be cool, almost, it seems like. And he's a lot cooler with the mask on. And I'm not saying, like, Adam Driver is a bad actor, and I think he just had to act this way, but there's this part where this general, and I'm trying to remember his name. I forgot his name, but I think he was just kind of another side character, you know? And he's sitting there, and he starts telling Kylo that Poe got away, and or Finn helped Poe get away. And as soon as he starts doing that, he knows. Like, you could look at the dude's face, the general's face, and you could tell that motherfucker is scared of dying. That motherfucker is scared of dying. Like, he knows that he has to be the messenger, and he's probably gonna die, and he's scared shitless. It's super funny. It's super funny. And then as he's telling him, he's like, Poe got away with Finn with the help of one of our Star Troopers. He gets mad. Kylo Ren gets mad and starts screaming and turns around and starts basically having a temper tantrum in this fucking corner, slashing at this computer, and the guy's scared shitless just standing there. And it's actually really funny, but like, you feel really bad for the guy, but like, you sit there and you realize like Kylo Ren is kind of just a little bit of a fucking baby. Like, he's just he's kind of like he's just a kid. Like, he's a big kid, you know. And one of the best things that I saw, or one of the best mirroring that I saw in this movie from Kylo to Luke, was that Luke wanted to be this great hero, but he always had this darkness inside. And he was also kind of shitty. You know, he wants to be this great hero, but he's kind of shitty, and he's really naive, and he's not wise enough yet to realize what his thing is, you know, because he's a kid. And then you got Kylo Ren, who doesn't want to be the hero and wants to be basically a second coming of Darth Vader, but he has the skills and everything, but his attitude towards it is really messed up. But I don't know if that. Don't get me wrong, I think Adam Driver's a great actor, and I feel like this is just how he was portrayed, and I feel like that's just that's the reasoning behind it. It's not that he's not a good actor, it's just that he had to be portrayed like that. And it was really weird because when he takes off his mask, he has this like giant head of glistening fucking like this Fabio hair, and he looks normal, and he has no scars, no anything. He's just normal, and it's like, it's really weird to see him like that, and it's just awkward. It's really just awkward, and I don't know if it's because like, and I feel like with the next one coming, because there is a part, like I said, there's a part where he gets defeated by Finn and Rey, and he's laying on the ground, and he's injured really badly, and Snoke's like, pick him up and take him with me, we need to complete his training. So I feel like in the next movie, if they do a next movie, which they're probably going to after making box office fucking opening records, they're easily going to make a secondary movie, and this one, and I feel like he's going to come back a stronger character, and like the character we saw in the beginning, because when we saw him in the beginning, comparatively to when we saw him in the end, he was kind of a bitch, to be honest, and it was really weird, because there's this part where, and spoilers ahead, so I mean, you've probably seen the movie if you're watching this review, but Han Solo Han Solo gets killed by Kylo Ren, and Chewie shoots him with his bowcaster. And now, if you don't know like any of the lore behind the bowcaster or anything like that, let me just fill you in. It's basically a plasma bolt filled. It's basically a plasma bolt like every other bolt of bolt of plasma that every other blaster shoots, but this one has a charged tip, so it acts like an arrow. That's why it's like a arrow, like a crossbow. And this one has a bolt basically a giant plasma-filled charge at the end of this bolt, and it hits him on the side. And normally he'd be able to push it off and be fine with it, but there's this part where he's bleeding, and you can see him bleeding, and he's hitting his side. He's like, bam, 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 and he's hitting the shit out of his side because it just hurts like a motherfucker. And you know it does because you know, it's not just a normal bolt. It's like a heavy fucking bolt, you know? It's like this heavy fucking shot that got you. It's like basically comparing a normal bolt to like an 9mm comparatively to like a 50 cal, which I know is a giant, like, it's a giant comparison, but it's like, that's what it is. Like, that's how it is in Star Wars, because that bolt caster is basically like a grenade on the end of it, almost. And he gets hit by it, and he's smacking his side, and it's kind of sad, because even though you know he's 100%, he's not 100%, you know, he's not 100%, he just got shot by Chewie, he had to kill he had to kill Han Solo, which, spoilers, it's his dad. He still gets beat by somebody who basically just picked up a lightsaber, which is Finn, and Daisy and Rey, who basically didn't even know she was a Force adept until maybe like an hour before. Like, it shows him being really weak, and I understand like it was probably a design thing for him. It was probably supposed to be a design to show him what he could be and show him what he actually is, because there's a part in it where he's sitting there and he's talking to what looks like a wall, but he's actually talking to Darth Vader's mask. And he's like, grandfather, like, please help me, I can still feel the light, which is a nice thing because, most of the time it's like you're either evil beyond redemption or you're somewhat good and you're somewhat evil, you're not really either or, and you don't know where you are, and you want to be good or bad, but you feel like it's this nice little gray area that that they brought in for Kylo, and it really makes him seem like a really helpless character, and almost like I don't want to say whiny character, but more like a more like I'm trying to find myself and be the person that I want to be, and try to be the person that I want to look up I look up to, and it's this nice little thing. And I think even though he is presumably very weak, and he is as a character, he's actually very weak, but as like what we could see him do in the future and what was shown in the beginning is pretty amazing. And like I said, it'll just have to take time and see if a second movie comes out, which it probably will, and everything like that. So that's basically like the whole main oh wait, there is one more. Luke. I keep forgetting about like these characters, and the reason why is because they're, even though like about Chewbacca and Luke, and this is the reason why I forgot about Chewbacca and Luke. It's not because I didn't want to reveal them later. It's just that J.J. Abrams made this big fucking deal, and this also has to go with the plot and everything. And what I dislike about the movie and its plot is that Luke. Mark Hamill is cast in here. You do see him for basically 5 minutes at the end of the movie, and that's it. Which is really strange because the twist to the end, the twist of this movie, and what was advertised by this movie as being a twist is Luke is missing. Or no, we won't show Luke because he's this big plot twist because you have to see him in person and what's it called. And don't get me wrong, it was great to see him. It was great to see Mark Hamill as Luke. I think he looks fantastic. I mean, he didn't age well, let's be honest, but like as Luke, he looked great. Like, you know what I mean? And it's kind of weird because you only see him for the last 5 minutes, and they made this big old spoiler like, oh, he's fucking, he's into some deep shit, and he can't be shown because it's this big spoiler. And it's really fucking sad when you only see him at the last 5 minutes, and they explain literally in a sentence why he's not in the movie, or basically at the end of the movie. And it's this part. That's another thing about my gripes about this game is the plot twists of this movie were very nonchalant. It was like I had already guessed. I was already saying before everyone was saying, and I remember when they were like, "Oh, Luke, he's in the movie, so he must be Kylo Ren," and even Film Theory was like, "Hey, yeah, Luke is Kylo Ren." Like, I sat there and I was still like, no. Because this is already established after all the games, and if the games, even though they're not, I believe some of them are canon and some of them aren't, it even says like the light side is, even George Lucas said the light side of the games are canon, and if anything has to do with it, that means Luke has become a Jedi Master, and has become the Grand Master of the Jedis. So, that's the thing, and I don't think he would betray his feelings on him being Kylo if he was, if he was a Jedi Master, it wouldn't make sense. And I thought I thought two theories, but my biggest theory, and the one I thought that was going to happen the most, was that basically he was going to be either the Sith Lord, who was Snoke, which Andy Serkis was, so it wasn't, or it was going to be, he trained Kylo Ren and felt bad about it, and that's why he's not in this movie, or that's why they haven't shown him. And I was actually correct on that theory, saying, I even said it to a couple of my viewers on my stream and things like that, and they were like, oh no, we still think it's Luke, and I'm like, no, I feel like that's probably it. And then as soon as I think another trailer came out, and it kind of showed Kylo, they were like, yeah, I think that's right, and I'm like, yeah, motherfuckers, I was right. Like, but it's just kind of sad because they really nonchalantly do the plot twists of this movie, as in, like, so there's a scene when Kylo Ren goes to Snoke, and he's like, my master, this, all this stuff, and then it's literally right after they find Han Solo, or like Han Solo finds Finn and Rey inside the Millennium Falcon, and I'm sitting there, and he's like, Snoke is like, I feel a sense in the Force, or something like that, and he's like, oh, it's your father, Han Solo, and Ren just looks up at Snoke, and that kind of clips it off, and then it goes to another thing where Han and Chewie and Rey and Finn are flying over to, I believe, a cantina on some island. I can't really remember too much, but and Han nonchalantly says, oh, they're asking him, like, why is Luke gone? And he goes, oh, Luke feels bad in training one of the Jedis, and one of the Jedis went to the dark side, and he feels personally responsible for it. So he left, and that was it. But it was like super quick, and it was super fast, and I was like, what? Like, I was just kind of upset because it was like all the plot twists besides Han Solo dying. Even though, which was funny because I got spoiled about it early, basically the day before I got in to see the movie, but it's still like, even if I hadn't seen it, I could tell because it was telegraphed really heavily. Like, in the scene, it's basically Kylo and Han Solo sitting on a bridge that has literally nothing covering the sides, so you're basically on a stick. You know, a stick across the other one. You're basically on a fucking log across the other way, and it's Han and Kylo, and they're talking, and then all the characters show up. You know, Finn and Rey just show up, and Chewie's already there, and it's like he's talking to Kylo, and he's like, son, you should come home back with us, and blah, 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 and then Kylo's just sitting there, he's like, will you help me, Dad? And he goes, yeah, I'll help you with anything, and he puts the lightsaber in his hands, and then he turns it on and shoves it through his chest, and he's like, thank you, and then, you know, Han falls over, which was really sad. It was super sad, and I honestly think if he had died, because the original plan was, if you guys didn't know this, that Han Solo was supposed to die in the 6th movie, I feel like he would kind of go into obscurity at that point, you know what I mean? So I feel like it hit even harder knowing he basically is dead. Like, this is canon, so he is dead. And it's just weird, you know? It's weird to see that, you know? It's weird to hear that, like, Han Solo is dead. He is actually dead. And, it's just, it's like all the plots besides that one, were really telegraphed. Like, I already, it was like, oh, Han Solo is your dad, like, done. And then it was like, oh, Luke left because he feels bad, done. And there was like, there was no real, like, I wouldn't say urgency, but there was no real, like, it's really hard to explain because it's not really reasoning, it's more like, there was really no, like, twist for Luke, and that made me sad because I was like, this isn't a twist, you could have literally left him out. You could have literally left him out and finished the movie off there, and that would have been the end of the movie. While Rey flies away in the Millennium Falcon, she could have just went away, and that would have been it. But in the end, like, she goes and she finds where Luke is, and she brings back his sword, you know, his lightsaber, and that's how you know, like, a second movie is coming because of that. But they could have literally just left him out, and it wouldn't have mattered. It really wouldn't have. They could have just said Luke went in hiding, that's it. And that's what got me mad, because they made this big old thing, and I really wanted to see what happened to Luke Skywalker, and it was literally just that. It was summarized in one sentence, and it was done, and I'm like, you motherfuckers. Another gripe I have is about Chewbacca, which is kind of weird, because normally I'm not annoyed with Chewbacca or anything. I actually enjoyed Peter Mayhew's portrayal of Chewbacca again. It's just that the problem is he feels like he does nothing, and I think the reason why he feels like he does nothing, even though he does all this shit, is because there's a part where, or there's a lot of parts, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of comedy, and good fucking comedy, like every single one popped. Every single like little banter, witty banter, every single compliment, every single joke, every single everything popped. It was so good. The banter between Finn and Rey was excellent, and the jokes between them and the jokes between Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford were great. And it's just like the problem with Chewbacca was he does all this epic shit. He does, he gets shot in the beginning and he has to recover, but he comes back and he's stronger than ever, and he fucking destroys all these stormtroopers. He shoots Kylo Ren in the side. He does all this cool shit, but it's so underplayed because literally in the middle of the scene, as well as the beginning of the scene, not the middle of the scene, but the middle of the movie and the beginning of the movie when they see Han Solo and Chewie, it's literally like he's the punchline. They'll like Rey and Finn will talk, and then Finn will leave, and Rey will be like, "What's up with him?" And Chewie will just be like, and he'll fucking he'll shrug, and it's literally that for like a good 4 or 5, like I would say a max of like 5 times, and it's just kind of sad because it really underplays like what he does throughout the movie. He basically kills a shit ton of stormtroopers. He gets shot, which is pretty drastic in itself because no one's used to Chewie getting shot, and then on top of that you have him being the basically like punchline to everything, and then he shoots Kylo, and it still feels underwhelming because he doesn't feel like he did anything because they made him the punchline of the movie. So it's kind of shitty. It's not bad, and I don't blame Peter Mayhew. I blame like the writing of it, And I think the writing of the movie was still great. It's just one of those things, and it's the same thing for the plot. The same gripes I have with like Luke Skywalker and Chewbacca are the same things with the plot. Like Finn and Rey, they grow really fast. Like Finn is the scaredy cat who's afraid of the Order, even though he was part of the Order. He's afraid of the Order and wants to run away from them. And then you got Rey, who seeks adventure and wants to do battle with the Order and join the Resistance. But at the same time, like she's inexperienced and she really doesn't know what to do, and she's really naive and things like that. But she's kind of like silent, and she doesn't really say a lot and do a lot, to be honest. And then you have Finn, who's like this stormtrooper badass who fucking trained all of his life since a kid, and he's scared of the rebellion. And like the problem with it is like in the very middle of the movie, Rey gets captured by Kylo to get interrogated, and this is when she starts having powers, because within the cantina she starts having powers. Like she has a flashback, and then she has visions of the future and visions of where Luke is and things like that. And a couple people call her not Yoda or Girl Yoda, is basically this girl who just comes in and she's like, hey, look, I don't use the Force, I'm not Sith or bad, I'm neutral, but I understand it, I've lived long enough to understand the Force, and it's calling to you, you are Force sensitive. And they don't bring up any midichlorian bullshit, which is great, and it fits really nice knowing that Rey is Force sensitive, and she's super strong in the Force. And the reason why this is where I said, when I said she really hits her stride here, is because there's a part where she's getting interrogated by Kylo, and she basically resists his mind torture, or she basically resists his mind torture by with her own willpower, with her own like force send back or whatever the fuck. And like to me, that was just weird, because I'm like, you heard about these things, sure, but you don't know that these things exist, nor do you know how to use them. It just doesn't make sense to me. And then you have And then you have this part where she's strung up, and then Kylo goes to talk to Snoke because he's like, dude, like, this motherfucking bitch, like, she fucking knows, I can't do anything with her, bro. And Snoke is like, bro, just bring a bit of me. And I'm like, okay, cool, like, sweet, like, okay, like, why couldn't she do it? Like, she's not a trained force power. She might be strong with it, but she's not trained in it. Like, she doesn't know how to stop your torture and everything. It's kind of like the same thing Cinema Sins said against Leia, where it's like, how did you stop the truth telling the truth serum probe and telling them your secrets when you're not even a Jedi yet, you know? And it might have been a callback to that, which makes sense. But then there's a part where she sits there and she goes to the guard and she's like, you will let me go and you will leave the door open and leave the room. And he goes, what'd you say? And and it was Daniel Craig, which to my surprise I was actually really like, what the fuck? But he comes over to her and she goes, you will let me go and leave the room with the door open. And he's like, no, I won't. I'll strap in your restraints tighter and then go back to my post. And he does it, and then she calms down and she looks at him like super serious, like if you were doing an actual Jedi mind trick, and she goes, you will leave the room and open the door, you will unlock me and leave the door open and leave the room. And he looks at her for a quick minute, and then he goes, I will unlock you and leave the room and open the door. And he walks out and she goes, and drop the weapon. He goes, and I will drop the weapon. He drops the weapon. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how do you know these powers already? Like, I know you heard of them, but you don't know how to do them. Unless you're super strong in the Force, unless you're basically Luke's daughter, there's literally no way you could have been this Force sensitive. Even Anakin Skywalker was not this Force sensitive. And it's just kind of weird because it shows now, at this point it shows her being a little bit more, I would say, like, confident, but at the same time it's like this shit doesn't make sense. And I know they're trying to progress the story fast on us and show that she's, you know, proficient in the Force, but it's just weird to see. It's weird to see, and it's like, it doesn't make sense to me, at least. And I think that's the only, like, bad thing on that side. Other than that, I mean, there was a couple scripted things that I understand had to happen, but it felt fake. Was the fight between Kylo Ren and Finn, when they finally do have a lightsaber battle? It looks like they're kind of even matched, and but then Kylo, like, quickly gets the lead on him, and he pushes him away and starts hitting his side again, because, you know, fucking Chewie shot him in the side. And then they start fighting back, and then there's this part where he literally just blocked Finn's move, and Finn turns to the other side and stabs, and it hits him in the shoulder. And I'm like, that shouldn't have happened when you literally just blocked a move from the same side, you know? It was just weird. Like, it was really weird, and it felt scripted, but, like, it was okay for what it was, you know? It kind of had to happen. And then it was the same for when Rey and Kylo fight. Like, Kylo's overpowering her easy, and it's because he knows how to use the Force, and he knows how to wield the lightsaber, and he's overpowering her easy. But there's this part where she gets the upper hand on him, and she just starts going crazy and starts doing all these fucking, like, not flips and shit, but it's more like she just starts doing these really accurate strikes, like strikes you would see a Jedi be doing, and it was just weird to see it. And she's like, it just felt super scripted. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like that was part of the movie. It felt like, it didn't feel organic, really. It felt like it was scripted, which is kind of surprising. But other than that, like, there wasn't really anything else that made me mad about the movie. The CGI was great. They had this, all the animals, there wasn't a shit ton of fucking cool looking animals because fucking CGI. It was basically a couple cool looking animals, one cool looking animal, and a lot of the practical effects that they did use were fantastic. Like, BB-8, like, that was a fantastic practical effect. I knew it was a practical effect because I was looking at that shit too, and I remember seeing the lizard leave no trails in the originals, and I was like, I hope BB leaves trails. I hope BB leaves trails. And as soon as you see him go, as soon as you see BB go, there's trails in the tracks, and you're like, oh shit, like that's a practical effect, like that's actually real, not CGI or anything, and it's kind of amazing. And I learned that that was actually supposed to be the original design for R2. They just didn't have the the technology to do it until now, and I like that. I like that a lot. I think the whole movie in general just hit the spot a lot for Star Wars fans like me, who grew up with Star Wars, who grew up with Jedis and the Sith and everything like that. It was a really nice nod, and even though, like, the only other sad thing I would say is that, and they're kind of right, is that basically the plot is A New Hope times 2, you know, because it basically is a reboot slash remake slash torch passing to the new generations, but the plot is also the same, where it's like, instead of the Death Star, you have the Star Killer, which is a planet that is basically an entire gun, and it eats suns to destroy planets, because that's, you know, that's what evil guys do. And other than that, like, it's kind of funny because in the beginning it's its own thing, like up until halfway it's its own thing until the other half, which is basically the plot to A New Hope. But it was a nice little, like, torch passing, you know, with everyone, like, making it out alive besides Han, and, you know, it was a good like reboot remake, in all honesty, and I can't wait to see what they have in the future for this for the series, and I hope they do opt to do another, you know, they do opt to do another another movie, and keep continuing the movies, you know, at least another trilogy, if to be honest, and see where Kylo goes, and see where Finn goes, and see if Finn becomes a Jedi Knight, and if they start, you know, all this stuff. It would be really cool, and I can't wait to see that. And honestly, I think the movie was just great. If you haven't seen it yet, it's definitely worth going to see it, and it's definitely worth going to like IMAX. Like, I'm honestly probably gonna go watch it again, but this time in IMAX, you know, IMAX 3D, and it's just worth it. So if you haven't seen it yet, just please go watch it. It's well worth it, and it really is. If you're a big Star Wars fan, it really hits the spot. It's exactly what you expect, and it does everything right that the prequels did not do, and it does everything right that the original trilogy did, but even better in some aspects. And other than that, I think that's it for this review. That was kind of all I wanted to say. So thank you all for coming in, for listening to me basically rant on for 50 minutes plus, and hope you liked it. Please like, favorite, and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have anything you want to ask me about my opinions, or you want to say something about your opinions and what you thought about the movie and what you thought about the characters and anything about the movie in general. And I'll be more than willing to comment back, or even make a reply video or anything like that. So thank you all for coming in. My name's Manu, and I am out of here.